Hey, this is a podcast. No, wait, it's a comedy podcast. Well, we tried to make it a comedy podcast, and it's not meant to offend anyone. So don't get offended, okay? And wait, there's something else. Oh, yeah, yeah. Listener discretion is advised.
Audiomatic presents Our Last Week.
Hi, Kunal.
Hi, Paul.
Kunal, here we are, another episode,
Yes, one more.
and we'd like to thank our Patreon subscribers.
Thank you so much for subscribing.
Yeah. And very soon we will be reading out the names of our Patreon subscribers in a sort of virtual group hug.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm amazed
and-
that people subscribe because for me it was, I didn't think anyone would subscribe. I almost didn't believe that we have listeners. I was almost like, it was like my belief in God. They didn't exist, that kind of thing. But they exist.
I have to be honest, all the Patreon subscribers are people who either hate your films or hate my comedy. So they have come together
Out of spite.
out of
They're
like,
subscribing out of spite.
because see, great hate, we've talked about this on this podcast. Great hate is also a kind of love.
Yeah.
Like, I think that they've come together to say, I'm going to pay every month to see how far these old men can fall.
Let's see how bad this gets, is what they're here for.
Yeah. And I think that if they're watching a Roman circus, right? They're
Yeah.
watching a house on fire. So they're
Yeah.
like, these two old men are trying to stay up with, the generation of influencers, young people, comic stan people, So obviously they have failed.
Yeah.
But how are they failing? Like, how rare do you get a monthly subscription to see something fail?
But I think that is the whole thing of watching people die, and I think that whether it's
Yeah.
a beheading or a crucifixion
Yeah.
or whether it was,
Yeah.
gladiators taking on lions. And I think that this is what we are in the podcast world. We're asking you to pay to watch us just set ourselves on fire in a podcast kind of world.
I feel like there's a room somewhere of our last weekers, and we've coined the phrase owlers, which is just
Right.
wrong.
Right.
And someone said we're owler army, and
Yeah.
this is just all. First, the grammar is incorrect because it's our last week is OLW
Yeah.
and owl is OWL. So
Correct.
it's all wrong. But I think everyone's humoring us. They're like, yeah, owlers is great, and yeah, we'll subscribe. All of that because they want to just fuck with two old uncles. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
They're like, we shall subscribe to this now. Chal. It doesn't cost that much.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens to these uncles. Let's see how badly they mess up. See, they're doing humor. See, look at them. Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like with those things in a zoo,
Yeah.
where they point, where the guy says, ye orang-utang Africa se aaya tha, abhi bahut buddha ho gaya hai. It had come from Africa, it's become really old, but it can still do some tricks.
Yeah.
Show them. Our subscribers are just that. They're throwing nuts at us. But it's very sweet of them to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Speaking of death, my first conundrum is death-related, Kunal.
Okay.
I went to a memorial service of a very funny guy,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And people were sitting around, and this funny guy he was a professor, he was a very funny guy, he ran a book club.
Right.
This book club met in a park on Sundays, so the book club thought it'd be nice to talk about him in memory at this book club. It's a memorial service in an open air book club, but this is India, right? So around us, people didn't give a shit. So there were joggers, there were morning walkers, and there was this football club that were practicing, and all the players were doing this like frog leaping.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it's a kind of exercise.
Correct,
I don't know
correct.
if you've done it. Maybe you do it regularly. Maybe you're doing it now.
Yeah.
So they were frog leaping around the memorial service, and the coach was telling them, higher, more frog, more frog. And they were like, rah, rah. And they were jumping around while someone was saying, I'm going to make up the name of the deceased person. Aditya was a lovely scholar, his sense of humor saved me so many times. Wah! Wah! And this happened while people were trying to speak.
Right.
And I thought that Aditya would have found this very funny.
Yeah.
But the memorial service did not see the humor of it. And they turned around and told the footballers, "What are you doing? Why are you making frog noises?" And then the coach said, "This is a park, we're allowed to play football." And then it went into a bitter, acrimonious fight between memorial service people and football people.
Right.
And then the memorial service resumed again. And it's a park, so lots of people come in. So there was a mad lady who was trying to, throw some debris to fish. There's a lake there as well. So she
Right.
came next to the memorial service, this mad lady, and started shouting at fish, saying in Bengali, "Kothai!" Like, where is the fish? While someone was like, and also Aditya was a lovely tennis player. And then you heard, "Kothai!" So I'm saying in the middle of the memorial service, mad person, footballers. And I thought that the deceased person would find this very funny because it's all sort of part of his thing, whereas nobody else found it funny. And I thought to myself, what kind of funeral service was a memorial service would Aditya have liked? Would he have liked a funny service, or would he have liked
A sad, somber sort of thing.
a sad service? In which case, it's okay for us to shout at mad lady and footballers.
I'm sure that you would want people to laugh at your funeral, pal. You'd want them to be like laughing, joking, saying, that was such a shit guy. He lied all the time. He was a procrastinator.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
finish my script. I paid him. He ran away with the money and my wife.
Yeah.
Do you want
Yeah,
people
yeah.
laughing and abusing you, or do you want people just very sad, somber? I wish I had given him more.
See, I'm glad you brought that up, because see what people say to me now. These are things people say to me now on my face. I feel like when I'm dead, at least they should say some nice things about me. Like these things you described, Oh, he's lied to 4-5 people. He didn't deliver my script. He's been missing. Where is he?
Yeah. Have you heard from him?
Yeah. And also, what name is he operating under this week? Those.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things.
So you're saying that you would love a bunch of lies at your funeral? Like just people just coming up and lying about you?
Yeah, because you see, like, for example, I lost a dear friend of mine in 2010, right? And I went to his memorial service where lots of people were giving speeches about how, they were his best friend. And I left the funeral service very upset because I thought I was his best friend. So the funeral service, instead of sort of making me love him more, made me hate him.
So it was a disservice. It was a disservice for you.
It was a disservice. And I feel like there's maybe, that's a different kind of problem where in a memorial service, while honoring a person, you find out facts that turn you, that make you dislike the person because people are honest about how they feel.
And I think that is one of the main reasons why in most memorial services nobody talks. As in abroad they fucked it up by everyone wanting to say shit about the person. Arey, you say shit, that's your perspective of that person, na. I have my own perspective. Abroad, now they've gone and everyone wants to talk and they want to talk about their memories of that person and all that stuff. I prefer the Eastern way, which is generally, listen, you go there, nobody says anything generally, unless it's some consolation or whatever. You're not giving some opinion and some hugs happen, some folding hands, and you walk out. Nobody says anything. You go outside and you bitch with your own friends only and all that stuff. Nobody gives speeches about the person and starts talking and like waxing eloquent and all that. And then everyone's like, huh? What is this?
Who is this guy?
Who was that guy? I don't like all that because that everyone has their own perspective of a human being.
What you're saying in India, the reason we're quiet at funerals and we just hug and we say, what is there to say?
Yeah.
Like every language. Or
very difficult time. We are there for you.
Very
Simple.
Time. Yeah. And they just squeeze your shoulder and just say beta, that kind of thing. Because they know who the real person was.
Yeah,
They know if they open their mouth, some shit will go down that will not be good. They don't want to tell the son that the guy was a philanderer in Thailand.
yeah, yeah.
He had debts in casinos around the world. Like the facts that are known about that guy
Correct.
will open doors that shouldn't be opened. So that's why we figured it out actually, because
Yeah,
in
we
the
figured it
West,
out. That's why
they're
nobody
still
says
doing a
shit over here.
service.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because couple of drinks down, they're like, let me tell you, you want to know about your father? Let me
yeah.
tell you. And the shit that will come out will not be pleasant.
No, no, no.
Like I was damn tempted in my best friend's memorial service to get up and say, how are you his best friend?
Yeah.
Like they broke a cardinal rule at an Indian memorial service by speaking.
And here also in India, they do that that 13 day they do some prayer or something, but nobody talks. They come, some pandit does some prayers or something, and then it's done. And everyone goes, they eat some prasad and all. If some bitching has to happen, of course it happens like privately with 5 6 people or whatever. But it's not some big audience and everyone is hearing some person talk and all that stuff. I don't know.
That the way to honor someone is don't bring up his life. Just leave with whatever memory you have in your head of that person.
That's what I feel generally.
And don't let facts get in the way.
No. Ultimately, you will remember the person the way you remember the person.
Yeah.
Unless someone comes
Yeah.
and fucks it up with some memorial speech.
Let me tell you who he was.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a fight. That's
Yeah.
not who he was. Kunal,
Yeah.
I'm going to switch tracks a little bit from memorial services to nudity.
Okay.
I'm sure you've gone down this path before.
There's a smooth transition there.
It's a quick and
Yeah.
smooth transition.
Yeah.
Now, one of India's biggest Bollywood stars, Ranveer Singh, posted photographs of a photo shoot where he was nude on a carpet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it started a morality debate. And we both discussed this. And obviously, a morality debate is very boring.
Mm-hmm.
What is the morality around nudity? It's nobody's business. It's uninteresting. You, for example, in fact, before I get into the conundrum, you, for example, have said you have been nude many times in many motion pictures and other media without any hullabaloo.
Yeah, well, I'm not nude completely, but cracks of asses and stuff like that. But as in, it's not. I guess I'm. It's not a celebration of the male form in my case. It isn't a sexualized
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's more done for comedy and comic relief. So I guess it's a little different.
I'd say it's, if I was nude, for example, it'd be an insult to the male form. It would be seen as some sort of a protest against the male body.
Right, right.
And you have said such to me in private as well.
Absolutely.
But of course, in my memorial service, you'd say he had a great body, obviously. Right?
Yeah. Lit.
Exactly. So we won't go into sort of your private nudity or my private nudity, but here the question is, one of public nudity. And one of the things that I think we talked about, which is the bigger conundrum, is how this might affect future roles.
Well, I think, when we've discussed this before, firstly, I think a lot of the protests is not about seeing the profile of a man's bum cheek or something. I think the protests also have to do with the fact that now we've seen him convincingly in so many different roles. No? We've seen him as Kapil Dev, we've seen him as Baji Rao, we've seen him as Alauddin Khilji, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Now the problem, I guess people also said, "Arey, now I've seen Kapil Dev's bum also, Khilji's bum."
Yes.
So I'm saying that I guess people now that they're like, "Arey, I've seen all these bums now, not only that bum." Ranveer Singh's bum is one bum.
You raise a very good legal point as well, because Kapil Dev may not have consented to his bum being on air,
Right.
in a magazine.
And no, I'm not saying he needs to take Kapil Dev's. I'm saying in people's minds, you know what I'm saying? In people's heads now. They're like, now, yaar, Kapil Dev ka bum bhi dikh gaya. That's the problem.
It's terrible. And now, in fact, for me, the World Cup victory is tainted. The 1983 World Cup victory is because of the bum. So So there are two aspects to this. There is him showing you bums of other historical characters he's
Yeah,
played. So
yeah,
the past is tainted,
yeah,
but also certain things in the future may also be tainted. Like, for example, if he was playing, if he was being considered for the role of, say, Chief Justice Fali Nariman,
yeah,
or Ram Malani, or whatever, like some
yeah.
senior law, or Field Marshal Manik Shaw, people might
Or
be like,
Muhammad Ali Jinnah.
or Muhammad Ali Jinnah. People might say, I'm not sure if he'd make a good Jinnah. Everyone's seen his bum.
Yeah,
Like there are certain roles for which he might be automatically disqualified.
true, true. And that's sad.
But you also brought up an interesting point, which is other doors might open up.
Other avenues will open. You know what I'm saying?
Some
Yeah.
some sort of like, yeah, role of a nudist or
Yeah.
a swimmer.
Other cheeks will part.
Yeah. If you go for public nudity as a star, it's a loss, but it's also a gain in
It
some
can be
ways.
yeah, of course it's a gain.
Like, for example, some ads might close, right? Like, you may not want to buy mutual funds from a guy whose bum you've seen.
See, I don't have an issue with any of this, Pal. I'm just like,
Yeah.
let me make it clear that, like I can very well watch like Kate Winslet expose herself in the Titanic and then watch her as a nun. I don't, I mean, I can buy both of them, because I guess it's fine.
For example, if Kate Winslet, was selling you life insurance in the
Yeah.
nude,
Hmm.
would that concern you? For example, like
I would buy it. For
if-
one, I would buy it. For one, as in, I would buy that life insurance. But that's a separate.
Yeah.
That's a separate
Yeah,
argument.
that's an individual. That's a
an
more
individual thing. I don't know whether everyone would buy it. I'm just saying, but I personally, I would buy it.
Now, knowing that Ranveer Singh has been nude, and he was selling me, say, Aditya Birla debt funds, hybrid funds,
Not on a carpet nude, but fully clothed.
not on a carpet nude, but fully clothed, I have to say that it would affect my investment decision, even though I know that the hybrid debt fund has been performing quite well in the last few years.
But I'm saying, see, again, I feel that this is all story driven, and that's why I come back to nudity should serve a purpose. Now, if Ranveer Singh was nude in the beginning of the mutual fund ad, then he invested in the mutual fund and he got clothes
Yeah.
at the end of it, because of the
Yeah.
mutual fund. Now that's story. That's like shit.
Yeah.
I didn't have
Yeah.
clothes. I had to lie on a carpet naked. Then suddenly I signed up for this mutual fund, and now I have my. So then there's story. That's how nudity should be used. That it serves the purpose.
And to confess, you've pretty much described my investment life.
Yeah.
I started out naked, I invested, and I got some clothes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a separate discussion, not for the podcast. But just so you know, you've also described, my mutual fund investment benefits. But anyway, that's not connected to Ranveer Singh. I just want to share that privately. I don't know what you would do with this knowledge, but I just wanted to share it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I can tell from your silence that this is not information you wanted.
No, I'm not. Because its imagery is strong.
Exactly. Now you're thinking of me naked, and like, again, in my memorial service, one of the things you'd say is one of the great joys of being friends with Anubhav was I never saw him naked.
Yeah. Except for in my head when he kept mentioning it on a podcast.
Yeah. Kunal, slight switch of topics from nudity to mothers.
Yes.
Again,
Thank
mothers, we all have them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you for that transition again, Pal. That's all. I'm saying.
Again, yeah, I'm leaving you with a couple of images in case you have to speak at my memorial service. Nudity being one, and mothers being. Now, this is more of a question.
Right.
You and I have both, in recent days, handled technology issues on our mothers' phones and iPads and laptops.
Oh yes, yeah.
And would you say that pan India mothers do things to their technology and screw up their gadgets, Apple, Samsung, in ways that are not seen anywhere? Like, for example, my mother somehow managed to do something to her Sony Live app, and she said fix it, where basically when you pressed any TV show, the dialogue that was coming through was not in English, but it was in some Eastern European language. she also managed to do something to her Swiggy that when you press it, food was being delivered to somebody else's house. Have you experienced technological things which, when you go back home, your mothers always say, "Solve this for me," and
Always.
your first question is, "How did you get here?"
Yeah.
Let alone the solving. How did you
See,
manage to do this?
there is. I'm saying this is a problem with, like earlier, the phone was either working or not working. It was very
Yeah.
simple. Like it's not working. Okay, it's working. But now within working, the variables of working have now become too many, because the depth in which you can get into settings are so many. And the roots. It's like a maze. You can keep going and keep going into settings, and suddenly your phone is talking back to you. The alphabets are the size of, like, they take up 40% of the screen. Each letter is like massive. Or it's taking voice commands when it's not supposed to. There's some little button on the side now. The phone has become green. It's all green now. Or the images have disappeared. They're just not there, but they're on the cloud, but they're on some other cloud, on my cloud. They've come onto my cloud. They're not on her cloud anymore. I'm saying it's
Yeah, yeah.
so the depth of how fucked up a phone can get, because even the phone didn't know it was capable of these things. Like the phone
Yeah.
the phone also is like, listen, where are you taking me? This is down a very dirty path. I've never been here before. This is beyond my comprehension. Because now the phone has started making toast. The phone now can suddenly operate the fridge. I don't know what is going
Yeah,
on. So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
it's too it's too much. So my
And
proposition,
also,
yeah,
you had a theory that at some point Tim Cook will want to hold a meeting of Indian mothers and fathers
yeah,
and ask them, Apple wants to know from you, how
yeah.
are you pulling this off?
I think that, there was always a time in the tech world, when, and still, where they go out and hire the top hackers of the world. They pay them. They say,
Yeah,
come and hack
yeah,
us. Come hack
yeah.
us. Come and, just mess us up and show us our flaws. I think Indian moms and dads also, to some extent, both actually, can be hired by these tech companies to just show them how amazingly these phones can be messed up in such a way where even those Apple experts and all are like, their minds will be blown. They're like, how did you get here? What is this? Like,
I remember my dad trying to send an NEFT,
yeah.
and he accidentally ended up sending his brother's childhood photograph to the person he was sending the NFT to,
Right.
who did not accept it as a form of payment, which I was
Right.
sad about, but
Yeah.
that's a different problem.
Yeah.
That should count as payment. But and then he said, why is the money not going?
Hmm.
And I said, the money's not going because you're sending him photos.
Hmm.
And then he started shouting at the bank. He called the bank guy and started shouting at him.
Why are you
And the
sending my
bank guy,
photos and not my money?
and the bank guy is like, photos are not currently a medium of exchange.
Hmm.
Like perhaps, the other shopkeeper is not accepting it
Hmm.
because it's not money.
Right.
Then he's abusing the bank guy, saying, "You've ruined my transaction." So this is a very interesting thing where tech is focusing on the wrong people. Tech
Wrong.
is saying the young will show us the way.
No, no, no.
You know,
It's the old.
it's it's the old, because they have done such things to apps
Yeah.
that it's not possible. My mother has somehow managed to do something where her Gmail
Hmm.
sends messages to all her friends,
Hmm.
a hello, good morning message every 15 minutes. And I haven't been able to figure out what it's done to stop it. Now,
Yeah.
don't you think that they should fly her down
Yeah.
to the Google campus in Silicon Valley, sit her down,
It
and
should
say,
be
"We'd
full
like
time
to have a chat with
employment.
you"?
Yeah.
It's a full time job. They should give her a laptop, said, "Ma'am, do your best. Do what you do on a normal day. Show us
Show us how you
how
do
you
it. Yeah.
show us how you spend your day."
Yeah.
Kunal, this has been our last week,
It has.
and join us every week as we bring you different conundrums. If you'd like to come have a special relationship with us on patreon.com / our last week, where we've discussed enough nudity. So I don't think there'll be any more nudity on Patreon. But
No.
you don't know. You never know. You never know. What a pitch, Kunal, to our listeners.
Yeah.
We are
Solid.
now selling nudity. Solid. Nudity on Patreon.
Yeah.
But we will be back in your ears next week on Friday for our Patreon subscribers and on Mondays for everybody else. And we will be also reading out names of our Patreon subscribers as well as answering their conundrums. And hopefully we will be able to see our listeners live in live events thanks to your support. And you may not want to see us live, in which case you should just stay at home and listen.
True that.
Bye.
Bye.
You were listening to Our Last Week, produced by Rajesh Tahil and Avdoot Khanolkar, hosted by Anubhav Pal and Kunal Roy Kapoor, assistant producers Akansha Kadam and Rahul Vaswani.